Okay.
Come on, guys.
We're outside. We're
all right.
Come on.
Here
Hopefully
we go.
this works.
We're about to find out. We're about to find out.
Making a test run on the Start, Build, Grow show to see whether or not Mike's getting any
Come on.
audio.
Come on.
See if we can get a thumbs up.
Give me
on
something,
this bad boy.
baby.
Yeah,
Give me something. Are we good? Are we rolling?
Sound okay?
Hey, Randy Brothers is live.
All right,
Come on,
so
guys.
we're going to tee
We
this up
apologize.
again. All right, guys, we are going to tee this up again. As you can tell, this is entrepreneurship
At its finest.
live. It is happening as we speak. We just invested in some new equipment and obviously didn't get a chance to test it first. Maybe you should learn a lesson to test your stuff before you go live. But
So
here
how,
we are. We're
how do we
live.
sound, guys? Do we have a thumbs up this time?
If this thing is about entrepreneurship, this is the way a lot of businesses start. There's a lot of sputtering, no audio or no video, and it takes a long time to get things figured out, right?
All right, so let's do this again. I hopefully didn't ruin your life by sharing it before, but let's go ahead and share this. Nick's going to share it out, and hopefully didn't lose followers and lose fans for sharing that ridiculousness we just had about 30 minutes ago.
Mike says we sound good. Hey.
Now maybe everybody has had a beer at the end of hump day.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Sound even better because you're more relaxed and tuned in an hour later.
100%.
All right, so we got a couple people viewing.
Hey, Andrew says you give us one more shot, guys.
My dude, thanks, man. Appreciate you. I appreciate your support, man. Make sure to share it. I'm looking forward. I need to get you on this thing one of these times, man. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, let's go ahead and tee this back up. We are today live with the Start, Build, Grow show.
Yep.
What the show is all about is taking entrepreneurship and the contractor industry and putting them together. Our objective is to tell the entrepreneurial journey through the eyes of an entrepreneur that has been in the contracting industry, and we want to tell that journey from all different phases of their business. Startups, large business, middle businesses, tech businesses, roofing companies, general contractors. We want to get it from as many different angles and different perspectives as we possibly can. So without further ado, I want to announce our special guest today, a good friend of mine. He is also in the roofing industry, but more importantly, he was a collegiate athlete at a Division I university. He was also a U.S. Marine, and he also spent time on SWAT. Yeah, I said it, SWAT. So without further ado, let me introduce
for the Nebraska State Patrol.
There it is. With the Nebraska State Patrol, Mr. Patrick Muhs. What's up, man?
How y'all doing?
Welcome to the show.
Thanks
for being here.
Yeah. This is exciting.
Thanks for putting up with our shenanigans, trying to get the show going.
I'm just glad to be at Brothers Bar and Grill.
There it is. We're in my basement, Brothers Bar. This bad boy took a lot of effort to build this thing, but it was fun, and now we're putting it to good use.
Awesome.
So, and again, our host, Nick Perrette, is here, so he's going to kind of tee up some questions, and we'll go with the show. We're going to try to hit it about 20, 30 minutes. And if you have questions, feel free to throw them in there. Let us know you're here. Say hi, say what's up, throw a question down there, and we'll go with it.
Yeah, well, you know, Moose, I want to start actually with some D1 football. What position did you play?
I was a tight end.
You were a tight end. Okay. So do you have a favorite route you'd like to run or what?
No.
Do you like to block? You like to block, catch?
We were not that much of a throwing team at the time, mostly a running team. So my primary objective was just to block on most of the plays.
Well, okay. Yeah. What school was it? Let's backtrack. We didn't announce the school yet.
It was the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And so it was a great experience. I would have to say that I learned a lot about losing. You know, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about today in this entrepreneurship thing, right? Like we go on, I spent 4 years in high school sports, went on to play some, as we said, D1 ball. And it's like, I think one of the things about entrepreneurship that you really have to grasp and have to get your head wrapped around is that sometimes with the sporting thing, it's like, man, if I lost, how quickly can I recover? Yeah. How quickly can I learn from the mistakes that I made? You know, you're sitting there and you watch that film. It's really not so important playing D1 ball, except for I do have to give a plug for that. I got to spend time with a couple of awesome, great Christian guys, and that was Tom Osborne and our receivers coach, Ron Brown. Two of the most awesome men that I've ever met in my life. So that's another plug for Nebraska right
there. There you go, man. And the crazy thing is I'm a Colorado Buffaloes fan.
There you go. Yeah.
We used to go hated rivals back
then. Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. You bet.
So why did you start playing football?
You know, I come from a small town, right? And
Yeah.
there was only that. You know, you either played sports or you didn't do anything else. And so I found that I was actually really good at it. You know, just some good natural genetics, and got a family history of people who were good in all the sports. And so liked it, wanted to go on. Actually was thinking about enlisting in the Marines when I got out of high school, but had an opportunity to walk on at the U. And so thought, man, how can I pass up this gig, right? Just got to try it out.
How tall are you? Here, let's see. How tall are you?
6'6".
6'6".
Yeah.
I'm not short.
Look how that goes. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and the football days was a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Not to mention he's a beast.
Yeah, man. So what did you take from your time playing D1 sports into now entrepreneurship and starting your own roofing company?
You know, if I had to try to make some sort of connection between entrepreneurship and the whole thing with playing D1 ball, is that one of the things that I discovered is that I really thought that I was something special and had a whole package to offer when I was in high school and went on to play D1. Yeah. And I learned when I got there that I just wasn't that great, right? That I wasn't spectacular, that it took a lot of hard work, and it wasn't the kind of thing where I was just like, hey, I was going to be a star of the show, without tons and tons of hours in a weight room, without tons and tons of hours studying plays, watching film and stuff like that. And so the takeaway for that, as far as relating that to the entrepreneurial world, is you don't have to be somebody who is way smarter than everybody else. You don't have to invent the one thing that's like nobody else has ever figured this out before. You got to be somebody who's a grinder, somebody who's willing to plug, somebody who's willing to fight and just never give up, right? Yep. Doesn't matter if you lose, doesn't matter if you win. Still got to watch the film, say, hey, what can I do better? What can I do better next time?
It's all about just getting better every day, right? I love that. And I remind myself that every day. I try to wake up every day. My only expectation for myself, for my staff, for my business partners is get better today than you were yesterday. I actually wake up and get better. And if you just continue to have that mindset and simplify your life down to just get better. Did I learn something today? Did I get better today? It leads to success, and it leads to growth, it leads to gains, it leads to experience.
There is no magic bullet.
No.
It's work, it's grinding. It's you know, as I alluded to earlier, like how quickly you recover from a mistake you make, where you're just able to shake it off and go, hey, I made a bad decision. We spent some money on something that didn't work out. Had faith in an operation, or had faith in a person that just didn't go well for us. How quickly can you recover, shake it off, go like, hey, there's another game tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're gonna go play, and then you do that debrief, right? We talked about the SWAT thing, right? Like we would do an operation, you pull back, you watch the video, and say, hey, what could we have done better on this thing to make us more effective?
Absolutely, great advice. Right? So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, so you played football in high school and in college, and did very well with that, and you played at a very prestigious school, Division I, and then you went into the Marines, correct?
While I was in school, I got involved in the platoon leaders course for the United States Marine Corps, and it was a life-changing event. It was an awesome deal. Got to spend 3 years going through a platoon leaders course. It's officer candidate school. It's where they're preparing all Marines, both prior service guys or college pukes like myself that had not been enlisted previously, to go through the system. And to find out those people who are going to emerge as leaders that can guide these young men and women that are Marines through life, right? Like you got to be able to survive.
Oh yeah. So how long were you in the Marines?
It was just the 3 years while I was in school.
3 years. Awesome. Awesome. So walk us through the next part of your journey. Was it Marines straight to highway patrol?
Yeah, so I went through the platoon leaders course with the Marine Corps while I was in college, graduated from school. By that time, some things in life and in our country had changed. They were downsizing the military. I had gotten married, and my wife and I had talked about it and decided like, hey, this is not the career path that we want to do for the next 20 years of our lives. And so that was the exchange, I guess, at that point was like, man, I really want to do something. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Oh yeah. That's what I was about to ask you about. Yeah.
And so going out and doing some time looking around for the thing that was going to fulfill all the needs that I had personally. Landed on the Nebraska State Patrol. That was like one of the best moves I've ever made in my life. Man, what an exciting ride. Was stationed in a little town for a couple of years in Nebraska, and then became a canine handler. Got on the SWAT team, moved into the city of Omaha, which is really still just a big town.
Yeah,
500,000 people in there or so.
Awesome.
And it was a great ride. Did that for 7 years.
Great, that's awesome, man. What would you say? The same question as before that Nick had for football. Like, what would you say you learned through the Marines and or SWAT that you can apply to your business entrepreneurial world, and that you can, let our viewers know? And give
the number one thing, the takeaway from all of the stuff that's just beat into your skull throughout all the training and that for the Marines, the stuff that you've got to have in order to survive in this in the Nebraska State Patrol world, it was all about integrity. You've got to be doing it the right way. Got to do it the right way, no matter whether somebody's watching or not. Follow the rules. Be the guy who's the guy that does it right, even when nobody's watching.
Take the high road, right?
That's right. And we have to do that. How many times we got to do that in our business? Man?
All the time.
You have something that happens, and it's just like, man, you just can't walk away from it. It's like, I've got to stick with this person. I made a commitment. I'm gonna see to it that we see this thing through all the way, even if it costs me money.
And there's a great takeaway there.
Yeah.
Is in business, in roofing, and contracting. I mean, you're going to come across situations where you're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be happy with the outcome. A customer's going to complain about something that you feel is totally not their fault, not your fault, right?
Right.
They're just going above and beyond, just trying to, upset you and get every little dime you can out of him, out of you as a contractor. Right. That stuff happens all the time. I mean, we know this. And unfortunately, that's the dividing line that separates us. The contractors that handle the difficult problems, and when something goes wrong, that's what sets contractors apart. So it's really important that you have a process in place for when things go wrong. Like, it's not about things going right, it's about when they go wrong. When something goes wrong in your business, how do you handle that?
How do you learn from it?
How do you handle it?
You only,
and how do you
only ever learn anything from your mistakes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or from bad situations.
One thing I want to touch on, though, is you guys have a lot in common, right? You guys both now have thriving roofing business, right? Congratulations, you guys have a ton of success, right? You guys both also lots of integrity, right? Which is, I think, the reason why you got here. But another thing you guys have in common is you guys both failed, right? We've already shared your story, right? How you went from bankrupt to where you are now.
Yeah.
So what about you? What was your story of failure, and what did you learn from it?
Isn't it the same story?
I know.
It's about the same thing. I found myself, with a part-time gig. I grew up in a construction world, right? Grew up in the construction business. Learned a whole lot of stuff about roofing and construction in general. Always had it as a part-time gig. It's how I helped put myself and my wife through college. Spent time doing that as a sideline thing while I was a state trooper in a small town in Nebraska, and then when I moved into Omaha, and eventually what happened is the business grew, right? And it kept growing and growing and growing. It was based on that integrity. It was based on the work ethic. It was based on that we were just grinding, and then we had some tremendous success. So much so that finally at the end of my career with the Nebraska State Patrol, which was by far the best job that I ever had, as far as working for somebody else, this business just continued to grow, and it was phenomenal. And so I eventually had to make a decision about getting out of the State Patrol, building the business full time, and it went spectacularly well. And so much so that I thought, hey, I'm the reason for all this. I thought I was
you're the man, right?
I'm the man, right?
You're feeling good.
So when it was going really, really well, I decided, man, I should own another business, right? And so I started looking around. We had some people who came in that, the stuff looked good, it smelled good, it seemed like it was going to be a fantastic opportunity. And I sunk all the money that I had and all the money that I could borrow into another endeavor, right? And it was something that I didn't understand the culture, and I wasn't prepared. And so it started to drain me. And since the two companies were tied together, this thing went down like the only thing that was more spectacular than my rise to the top was that burn up during reentry. And it took everything down. I lost everything. I went from being the guy who walked across the stage at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I don't remember what year it was, as the 4th fastest growing company in Omaha, Nebraska, to 3 years later, we were locking the doors and handing over the keys to somebody else, right? And so what a humbling experience, right?
Yeah.
But we recovered.
Go to that moment. Let's go back. Let's go to that moment. The moment I'd like to talk about moments, right? Like I believe the entrepreneurial journey is defined by a handful of moments. There's always a moment in your career, in your journey that steers the ship one way or another. So take us back to that moment, the moment you decided, or you knew that you were done. Like you knew that you had to change something. You had to hit the reset button, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I got through that.
I wasn't willing to let it go, but I got told that by all the people who I'd been doing my banking with and all my insurance and everything else. Right. It's like that was the decision that was made. It's like, hey, this is done. We're shutting it down. Right. So, but it was. I mean, you do have. The reality is there are very few defining moments in a person's life, right? And that was definitely one of those defining moments. You wanted to go back to the time when the door was locked, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's it. I'm not willing to accept this as a failure when I watched the door lock.
Yeah.
But then I went home, right? And I lost everything. When I say I lost everything, I lost a wife, I lost a house, I lost a truck, I lost a company. Kind of lost my will to live for a little while, right?
Yeah.
And then
so I've been there. It's a dark place.
It was a dark place. It was a really dark place.
A really dark place.
And so you're sitting there, and one day I think I was laying there on the couch, and I was just like, I got to get up and I got to go. And I didn't even know where it was, but then had an opportunity to get involved back in the business through an entirely different avenue because a friend of mine called and said, hey, there's this huge hurricane, and it was Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Yeah. Like, this thing's going to go inland in a matter of a few days. What do you say about jumping in your truck? I hooked onto my camper, and I just started driving. Just went down to New Orleans and got an opportunity to start doing some consulting for an insurance company. And it was a time when it's all of a sudden the light turned back on. I still got this.
Yeah,
I still got it, you know. And I was grinding in an entirely different way, but it was like, all of a sudden, the light was back on. I regained my manhood, so to speak. Yeah. Not in the usual way people do when they go to New Orleans. Sure. But minding my P's and Q's, but just grinding, just going back and saying, no, I'm still alive. I still got this thing. We're going to make it happen, and they continue to build. Made a lot of money, and then went to work in the insurance industry permanently because I found that I liked them for what I was doing, and they liked me. And that evolved for about a 6-year period until that evolution took me to a place where, hey, there was a provision here and now it's over, right? Yeah. That time has passed, and it was time for me to start this thing back up again around the year of 2010. And it has been a spectacular ride ever since. Tons of bumps in the road. Oh, yeah. Things breaking down. We're still out there wrenching on trucks, and
we're still out there not testing our audio.
Yeah, not testing the audio. Right. Yeah, the stuff that went wrong at the beginning of this thing was how the business. Even though I'd been through it before, Randy, and I had done this, and you'd think like, hey, this is all going to be just like rainbows and bubblegum from here on out. It wasn't that way, man. Like it was. We still went through all the same stuff. That it was like, man, now I remember why I had that rule, why I had the thing set up the way that I did back in the old company when things were successful. It does come back to you. It is a journey, but you still have to go down the same path. Nothing has changed. I still got to work just as hard. I still got to grind in the same way that I was, and you have to stick to those faith principles, right? Like the things that is like, if you do this well, you're going to succeed, and if you don't, you're not. And that's the rule of life, man. That's why this is so exciting. That's why it's so cool to be an entrepreneur.
And I think one of the things, going back, because our stories are really similar in that, one of the things that I learned when I was going through all this was, and I think you kind of alluded to it, but I think it's safe to say this is the same lesson you learned, is I'm not as good as I thought I was.
That's exactly right. Man.
Right? So the next phase of pulling yourself out of a tough situation, one of the biggest takeaways for me was I need to do a deep dive on myself, right? And that's a big part of my teaching and coaching is like, you got to fix A before you can fix B, right? Mm-hmm. So it all starts with leadership. So I did a deep dive on myself and figured out like, okay, a lot of things were blatantly obvious that I was doing wrong. My pride was getting in the way, and greed can creep up on you. I mean, that's tough as well. So when I switched my mindset over to being people-centered and people-focused and focused my energy on providing opportunities for other people and helping other people succeed, everything changed.
Yeah. Well,
everything changed.
That's what I was talking about when this whole thing started, about being a coach, not just a coach for other people. When you think you got it all figured out, but a coach for yourself, right? Yeah. And so that, going all the way back to that, watching films from football, right? Like how quickly do we recover from a loss? And I think that's what you get when like that. We like to hire athletes in our business because those people have been through a system where they've learned that, hey, a loss happened, the next day we got to have a positive mental attitude. We're going back to practice. We're watching that film. Oh man, Pat, you led with the left foot, but the play was going right. That little split second that you lost in productivity or in efficiency was what caused the failure on that thing, right? Mm-hmm. And you analyze those plays and you say, I'm going to recover quickly. I'm going to get over this. Hey, I made a bad decision. I bought the wrong truck, or I, spent a bunch of money on advertising that didn't work. It's like, man. And the other thing is that one of the things that I've learned is that, and I was thinking about this when you asked me about it yesterday, like, you go through so many things where you gotta stick to the basics or the fundamentals. Again, going back to that sports reference, right? Do the right things, the basic things, the elemental things, and do them over and over again the right way, and you will succeed. Yeah, you will succeed, because that's the thing that prepares you for. Like, if you went in there and you weren't practicing any fundamentals, and you went to, like, say, a boxing match with Mike Tyson. I know that dates me because that's a long time ago, right?
I watched Mike. I grew up watching Mike.
You go in there, you've got no fundamentals that you've been working on and practicing and disciplining yourself. You're going to get beaten so badly you'll never get in a ring again, right? Yeah. But if you go through and you learn the fundamentals, and even when you lose and even when you get beat down, it's like, hey, I can recover quickly and start getting ready for the next fight. And you have to do that stuff the right way. Yeah. You got to plug into a system.
So
systems, you do.
Systems, systems, right?
That's the add-on is, and I want to go into some questions if you got some. Guys, if you got questions, feel free to fire
questions
away.
Would be great. Any kind of engagement.
We've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge in the house right now. But man, on top of the self-evaluation, self-awareness piece, systems and process. I can't tell you enough how important that needs to be in your business. Whether you are just one man working out of a truck, or you're running a 50-person organization, you have to be focused, and your entire team needs to be focused on developing systems, developing processes, and when you got them developed, keep developing them, keep tweaking them, keep making them better, keep improving them, and your business will just start to kind of mold itself into what it's supposed to be, a well-oiled machine that just spits out whatever you're selling, right? That's the idea.
So we've got a rule in our company, and that is that we're always trying to define process, right? Like, this is a catchphrase in our world, right? So it's like, what do we do? How do we do it? Why are we doing this, right? So you spend time and you define this process and you get it all laid out in a workflow. And as soon as you got it, you're immediately beginning to refine that process. How do we make it more efficient? Look, do we need this part? Pull it out and get rid of it. We need something else here. Let's plug that thing back in. It's the thing that, my dad is a contractor, right? And you hear this story all the time about how, like, dad built a business, grandpa, right? Yeah. And then son comes along and he either perpetuates what grandpa had going, or he builds it a little bit bigger, or does whatever. And then you always hear about this third generation, perhaps, that comes along and says, or you hear about the people who a business failed with, right? And why did that happen? Grandpa had something figured out. Maybe the son had some charisma, or he had the ability to keep building that business, right? And what they failed to do was build a system that they could teach to Junior.
There you go.
Junior is not necessarily stupid, and he's not necessarily unmotivated. And that's one of the things that we've embraced in our company is that, man, there's a generation of people out there right now. Everybody talks about, well, the millennials just don't have this going on. And that's a generation of people who are hungry, they're motivated, and they're smart. They're not wasting their time like we did, man. Like, they've got so much information available to them. All they got to do is turn on the right filter, and they're tuned in, baby.
It doesn't take 20 years of swinging a hammer to prep yourself to start a contracting business like it used to. I'm a third generation contractor as well.
There you go.
And my grandfather, built everything. There was nothing he didn't do around the house that he didn't do himself. He roofed his own house. Right. He did his own plumbing, his own floors. He did everything. Like, they just did it. And that's the generation that they came up in.
Think of all the years that it took for him to amass that amount of information that it took to be able to build a house, to plumb it, to wire it, to do all this stuff. Now you can learn all that in a 15-minute YouTube video. It's just crazy.
And then my dad took that to another level, and my dad literally can. And I learned a lot. That's what inspired me to get into contracting. He can literally build a house from the ground up. He can pour the concrete. He can literally do everything. He's just done that. And that was, for me, that's what sparked my interest is I want to get into this industry. I want to figure out how do I become a manager, an owner, a leader without having to spend 20 years learning every piece of building a house.
Right.
So I went to school. I worked full time as an assistant project manager, learning the management side of the business. And then I spent time with each one of the crews. I would spend weeks on end with drywallers. I'd go spend time, months with framers and trim carpenters and painters and learning all the aspects hands-on at a much more accelerated pace.
Right.
And that's what helped me get to this level at this age is I went all in early and I learned as much as I could, but with a focus on the business side of things.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how we did
well,
that.
you know,
exactly.
You guys kind of mentioned it. It was like now you can learn anything with a 15-minute YouTube video, right? There's so many resources now. If you're resourceful, you can go dive in. You can start a company, right? But that just means that anybody can start a company, right? And now you're looking at people like me. I'm 26 years old, right? I'm starting a company. What advice do you guys have, or started a company? What advice do you guys have to the younger generation, right, who now has all the resources at their fingertips to make sure that they don't have to go through the similar things that you guys had to, where you guys did fail that first time?
It's all about a system. It's plugging into a system. I think that the biggest challenge for a 26-year-old person who's going to be starting a business is the word that I said before. It's a filter.
Yeah.
Now there is so much information out there that you got to try to filter out what stuff is the real deal and what stuff is the BS, right? You know, I grew up, you're a third-generation contractor.
Yeah.
My dad, I can go to him for financial advice. I can go for him for building advice. I mean, like a great guy who really has his stuff together. And it's like, it took him his entire lifetime to do that. I was very blessed to be around that man where I could learn what my dad had to offer because he was willing to teach, right? He was one of those guys. And I just grew up in a really good environment, right? Like my mom and dad are very positive people. They're one of those people who always said and believed you can do whatever you want to when you put your mind to it, right? And so we gain that information and we move on to that thing. And now it's just simply taking it and systematizing it so that we can teach it to somebody else. And that is the 26-year-old who's looking for that entrepreneurial option, that entrepreneurial start. It's like, what can we do? Because I know that's what Randy's doing. I know that's what we're doing in our company too. It's like, I want to take somebody and teach them and say, not just that you can go out there and swing a hammer for us or learn how to be a foreman. I want to teach you how to build this business. Yeah. I want to teach you how to be successful. I remember in the years past when people would be like, oh man, that guy went out there and started a business. You know, he used to work for me and I taught him everything that I knew. And they'd be bitter about that. And I'm proud. That's like, you know, I'm blessed because I've got a 24-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son. And I've watched those kids grow and blossom into something that's just super exciting to me. If one of my employees goes out and becomes successful, building, that's like one of my kids. I'm excited as I can possibly be. I get as excited about that as when one of my own children makes something, you know, some huge success on something. It's like, I'm flattered. If a guy went out there and started a business, or a gal, and he or she is successful, I've had people do it before where they had 15-year-long runs with some very successful businesses. That means I did it right. I'm not upset.
Isn't that our goal? And we'll take some questions after this, but find people better than you. I've said it before. Probably say it again.
That's not hard.
Right? You know what? We're not really that good at a lot of things.
But I almost want to answer my own question I just asked you, is because I think you put it great, is I try to just latch on to anybody who's got business experience. And it doesn't really matter what industry it is.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because if I have the resources and understand my services, that's great. But now if I can just attach myself to anybody that has an experience, it'll take you far.
Back in 1989, I met who I consider my business mentor. Right? And a guy has nothing to do with construction world, right? But I learned more from that person about how to deal with people and how to deal with situations and how to deal with business. And I still, to this day, counsel with Merritt. Just an awesome.
Same here. The first guy that ever hired me as a project manager when I was 20 years old. I walked into his office. I said, and this is in the book. I told this whole story in the book of I sat there for like 2-3 hours with him, trying to convince him to let me come work for him for free because I wanted to learn how to build a house. That was it. I wanted to learn how to build a house from a management side of things, and I even volunteered my services for free. And after about 24-hour period, I ended up getting that job, and that job that was one of those moments. That job set me on a course of contracting that ultimately led to epic failure, but it happened so early that I was able to recover, bounce back, review the game tape, go back in the next day, the next week, and continue to implement positive things and all the things that I learned, and then boom, 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 the stars started to align. And the businesses started to thrive.
It is amazing.
Let's try to take some questions, and I know we're getting towards the end of this. We're going to wrap up here shortly. Looks like we got a lot of interactivity over here. Thank you guys so much for watching.
We got a lot of engagement. No
Awesome.
questions, but Andrew's been great. He kind of told a little bit of the story here. He's like, man, my son picked up shingles when he was younger, but hates that kind of labor. After 6 years, he came back to me. He's now the CFO bookkeeper for the company.
That's awesome.
There you go.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so that's pretty cool. So yeah, he was very.
That may not be their strength. Their strength may not be.
That was the
Yeah.
reason why I chose roofing, is because when I worked in my dad's business, we did a lot of flat work, a lot of concrete, a lot of foundations, a lot of stuff like that. I hated having dirt in my shoes.
Yeah.
So when I got an opportunity to get up on the roof, man, me and my best friend were working for our dads, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's where I found that I like to be, is up in the air, man. I wanted to be on that roof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this guy right here has probably forgotten more about roofing than I know.
that is one of the advantages. I am not anything special, but in our company, I am kind of like the Swiss Army knife of the
roofing.
business.
Yeah,
right?
he's the guy who
There's a
put his
question
time
about
in.
roofing. I can pretty much answer it.
Cool.
Right?
All right,
Absolutely.
guys. Well, hey, if any other questions, make sure to share this, like it, comment. We're going to be continually doing this at least once a week, and most likely going to be expanding that soon once we can get this technology thing figured out.
Yeah.
We're going to be bringing on a lot of different guests from different backgrounds and continually telling the entrepreneurial journey through just live chats, man. I love talking about business. I love talking about entrepreneurship. I love hearing other people's stories. We want to hear your stories as well. So tune in, share it with your friends, do what you can to help us out, help grow the Start, Build, Grow show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Start, build, grow.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Peace
Appreciate
out.
you.